Hi, welcome to Buddhism for the World. Today we're going to explore the third step to how we become a Buddhist. If you stayed with us in the last two shows, you would have gone through the step to taking refuge in the Triple Gem as well as observing the 5 precepts. So what we're going to look at today is that after we step into the door and after we realize how we're going to follow our lives as a Buddhist, we're going to look more at the directions that we can follow in order to practice Buddhism in our daily lives. So what we're going to talk about today is the Noble Eightfold Paths. The Noble Eightfold Paths is one of the very first few teachings taught to us by the Buddha after he attained enlightenment. Because we know that suffering and being unsatisfied with life is one of the many facts in life that we have been taught. So here, the Noble Eightfold Paths are here to take us away from suffering and lead us to liberation. So just by looking at the name, the Noble Eightfold Paths, we know that it's going to give us basically 8 ways to how we're going to, or the directions that we're going to follow in order to live a better life. So noble in the term means what is correct and what is away from evil, while the word path, well, it's self-explanatory. The path is the direction that, again, that will lead us to liberation and enlightenment. There's a story about Zhengzhi, who was a student of Confucius. He was a very upright person while he was alive, but he also led a very poor life with his wife. So after he passed away, he was so poor that he couldn't even afford to buy a piece of cloth enough to cover up his body. Therefore, somebody suggested to his wife that, well, why don't you turn it diagonally so you can cover up both his face and his feet? But his wife refused. She said, "My husband was a very upright person. Therefore, he would rather be an insufficient yet righteous person than to be someone who is sufficient yet unrighteous." So from this story, we can see how important being right is. Here, the Noble Eightfold Paths, like I've said before, it consists of the 8 things, but it actually all comes into one thing. Because these 8 paths, when I list out the items, you see that they actually follow one actually follows the other. So if you look at the chart with me now, you can see that right view leads to right thoughts, while right thoughts give rise to right speech, right action, right work, right progress, which then leads to right mind, and finally we come to right concentration. It can also come in a circle or a straight line, but we know that they are all deeply connected to one another. And after that, I'm going to show you how that all the practices we're going to learn in Buddhism cannot be done without the Noble Eightfold Paths. Here, the Noble Eightfold Paths look simple, but as we explore the meaning, we're going to realize that it's actually not that simple. It's much more complicated to what we just see. So I'm going to start by explaining the contents of the Noble Eightfold Paths. The first item of the Noble Eightfold Paths is right views. Right views marks the beginning of the Eightfold Paths, and it also tells us that it's the most important out of the 8 paths. Why? Because there's a saying that tells us that a good beginning is half the battle. So learning requires correct understanding and thoughts, so that what is being taught and what actually goes into your mind doesn't go distorted. So here, learning Buddhism is the same. As we start to learn Buddhism, it's more about correcting our mistakes and get rid of our bad habits so that actually become a past. Furthermore, when we practice Buddhism, it's actually about continuing to question ourselves. We look at what is wrong with ourselves and we correct these wrongdoings. And also, we will try to stop proving that what we're doing is right. Instead, we will reverse the process and look at what is wrong with us and try to change it. What are right views, you may think? Well, I'm going to give you some examples that have been quoted from the sutras that shows us what right views are. The first one comes from the Lion's Roar of Srimala Sutra, where it says, "The right views are those views that are not distorted and will not lead to our downfall." Second is the Flower Garland Sutra, or what we call the Avatamsaka Sutra. It says that the right views are those views that are unshakable and will lead us away from delusion. Third, the Treatise on the Perfection of Great Wisdom says that right views are wisdom itself. And fourth is the series of doors to the Dharma realm, where it says that right views are views that are clear and perfect perception of the Four Noble Truths. Once again, from the fourth sutra, it tells us that right views are clear and perfect perception of the Four Noble Truths. So let us put it together from what we have just heard. Basically, to sum it up, right view are views that are free from evil views that is deviant from righteousness. Some examples of right views are right views on cause and conditions and cause and effect. There's another saying that tells us that one reaps what he sows. So if you plant a melon seed, you're not going to get a mango seed. Good causes and conditions will lead to good results, while evil causes and conditions will lead to evil results. This is a correct view on cause and effect. Second example of what I mean by right view here is that the right view on good and evil karmas. Karma means action. It means what we do, or the activities of our body, or what we're actually thinking here, our mind. So a lot of people actually have doubts in cause and effect, because they always see the good suffering, while the bad, those people who do bad, still living a very happy and satisfactory life. So they start to think that maybe this idea of cause and effect is not right. But let me tell you, this is only a matter of time, because karma will manifest when the right time and right conditions are there. So don't be fooled by what you see in this very moment, because you need to give a lot of things time for them to become true. The third example on right views is the right views on impermanence, suffering, and emptiness, the three of these. These are actually the truth in life. So once we understand and we actually see the true side of impermanence, emptiness, and suffering, then perhaps we won't have such a pessimistic view towards life. Because we know that when impermanence comes, what is bad will naturally become good. And when you lose hope, impermanence will bring you hope. So again, once you have right views on these three items, you will start to live a better life. And of course, you become much more optimistic. Now, right view, the word view in right view is actually how we see life or understand it. These are also views in accord with the Dharma. Sometimes our view shapes our philosophy of life. It shows how we actually think about life, really. So right view also equals, like I've said before, it's a clearer understanding of dependent origination, cause and effect, karma, the Four Noble Truths, and of course the distinction between good and bad. So having right view, it means being able to understand how profound the Dharma is. Because we're not just being fooled by what we see on the surface. Rather, we go deeper into it to see what it really tries to tell us. So the moment we begin to establish right views, our Buddha mind will also begin to stir within us. So in a way, we turn the right key, then the right door will open. So here, this right view means the key that opens our mind to the path of Buddhahood. So that was right views. The second item of the Noble Eightfold Path is right thoughts. We can also explain it as right intentions, right differentiations, right thinking, and right enlightenment. Right thought is based on right view, which is what I've just talked about. And here, right thoughts is where we try to get rid of our three poisons, which is also greed, hatred, and ignorance. So here, right view helps us give rise to right thoughts, which is basically thoughts that are away from greed, hatred, and ignorance. And once our basic views about life is right, our thoughts which flow from this view will also be right. Of course, to make this happen, we need to constantly question ourselves. Therefore, we have to actually spend a lot of time looking into ourselves with honesty. We have to truly tell us what is wrong with us and be honest with ourselves and try to correct that. So we're going to actually take a short break now, and after we come back, I will continue to talk about what right thought is. So don't go away. See you in a bit. Welcome back to English Buddhist terminology. We were just exploring the second item of the Noble Eightfold Paths. So we're going to continue looking at what right thought is. Just then, before the break, I was speaking about how right thoughts is to be free from the three poisons. And so how do we actually make sure that our thoughts are free from the three poisons, which are greed, hatred, and ignorance? Well, some of the suggestions that I can give you here is, in our everyday life, we can try to strengthen our mindfulness of the truth, to think more about a mind that is full of compassion, or a mind that is more gentle, or a mind that is more clear with the truth, or a mind that is free from anger, or thoughts that corresponds more to what the Dharma is trying to teach us. This way we'll actually be closer to Buddhahood. Now the third item in the Noble Eightfold Path is right speech. This is actually about using words that are righteous, true, and morally correct. And sometimes we can see that it's quite easy for us to create bad karma with our speech. What is the reason for this? Maybe it's because speech is so close to our lives, and it's actually quite close to our mind, what we're actually thinking up here. So it's quite easy for us to just burst out with words that maybe we don't even think twice before it comes out. So this way, it's quite easy for us to hurt other people or say things that we may regret in the later stages of our life. So most bad karma are created by our speech. So this isn't one of the examples, or what I can prove to you is by showing that 4 out of the 10 unwholesome karmas actually are created by our speech. The first one is lying. Lying, as we have discussed in our last show on the 5 precepts, lying is about saying things that are untrue, or saying things that cover up the truth, or to confuse other people's perception about what is wrong. And second is duplicity. This is by being a person who bends with the wind. So with one person you say this thing, and with the other then you say a completely different thing. So by saying this, you could create a lot of disharmony between people. And the third is harsh speech. This means we say something that is harsh, something that is forceful, words that will actually hurt other people. Say, for example, people swear, or people who talk loudly, or again, people who talk forcefully to make people feel uncomfortable or hurt or upset. The fourth is idle speech. Again, it's words that are untruthful, maybe, or words that are spoken at the wrong time or at the wrong place. So it's also speech that is disorganized or presented in a bad manner. So again, these are all the things that will make you yourself or other people feel bad. Right speech is about saying things the right way at the right time. So we know that sometimes one word can save a country, but also one word is enough to destroy the world. So words are so powerful that they can be used to bring great harm to others, or at the same time, you can try to bring benefit to other people by saying things that are nice or things that are helpful. Although we know that the mind controls the mouth, but the mouth often seems to be able to talk by itself. Like I've said before, it doesn't really think, but it's us, the whole person here, who has to bear with the consequences of what we actually say. And there are 4 guidelines concerning speech, and these are also the 4 ways to how we can actually improve what we say, to basically improve our speech. The first one is simply to tell the truth. Well, it means don't lie whenever you can, or try your best, but at least discipline your mind to say the things that is most truthful or honest to other people. Second is to show compassion in our words, to bring gentleness and kindness into this world. Third is to be encouraging. Sometimes we tend to hold back in saying words that will make people feel much better or make people feel encouraged. But sometimes just that one word of encouragement can bring a lot of hope to other people. And fourth is we'll try to be helpful in the things that we say. When we explain or teach, we try to explain or teach with our words. So in a way, we can also, another way to be helpful is, say, when somebody needs to find a person to talk to, we simply be their listener. We just sit there, and for them to talk, we just listen to them. And this way we can also be quite helpful to them. The next of the Noble 8 Paths comes to right action. Right action is about the workings of our mind, which is influenced by right thoughts. So here you can see again, when we went from the second item to right thoughts, now we come into right action. Our use of language is also influenced by right speech. So the things our bodies do is influenced by right action. What does right action include? It actually includes behaviors that keeps our body, speech, and mind pure. Excuse me. And how do we do this? It's by not killing, not stealing, not committing sexual misconduct, which make up the 3 of the 5 precepts that we have just talked about last week. However, these are still passive ways to prevent yourself from doing evil deeds. The right attitude towards right action is to try to protect life, be kind and compassionate, and of course give generously whenever we can. Sometimes living a regular life and with a disciplined mind is also called right action. Say for example, when we maintain a right amount of sleep and we do enough exercise and we amount a regular intake of food, or of course rest that comes to a suitable amount, it will also represent a regular life. So by doing this, not only do these actions ensure good health, but we'll find that when we are working, we actually become much more efficient. So these are also elements for enhancing family harmony and of course peace in society. The next item is right work. Right work means a proper occupation or a proper way to make a living or to earn our money. Here the Yogacara Bhumi Sutra says to seek clothing, food and other items with proper paths and refrain from all evil methods is called right livelihood. Livelihood here is what I mean by work or our job. So right work means not doing anything that will cause harm or violate the rights of other people. So some, for example, is, here the Sakyamuni Buddhist teachings, it tells us that Buddhists should not operate a gambling house, a brothel, or a slaughterhouse or other professions that kill. So right work are basically work that adheres to Buddhist teachings on compassion, wisdom, and middle path, etc. So here, when you look at what you actually do, if your work runs counter to what the Buddha has taught in his Dharma, then perhaps we should start thinking about changing what we do, or change our jobs, or change the way we do things. But here I'm not actually talking about you going right into another job immediately when you found that you're doing the wrong thing. Because when you make a change, you need to take into consideration of the influences that will occur to the people around you. Say, for example, your family, your employer or your employee, or basically the people around you that might suffer or be affected by you making this change. Next is right progress. Before, with the first 5 items we talked about, right views going together with right thoughts, right speech, and right work. With these 4 together, we generate right progress. Progress means our effort to change things for the better, or our progress in making us calmer, wiser, or morally correct. Some, for example, is, we discipline ourselves by telling ourselves that every day I will try to make more progress into learning even a little bit more Dharma every day. Or say, I will try to spend some time to get to know myself better a bit every day. Or because we know that all of this, even when you know some treasure exists somewhere, it takes a bit of time for you to actually reach this treasure, and then you have to dig it out. All of these take a bit of time. So here, if you make constant progress the right way, you will eventually achieve your goal. In the treatise on the perfection of great wisdom, there are 4 ways to make progress. The first one is to give rise to goodness where there is none. Basically, so we bring goodness into existence. Or secondly, we foster goodness where there is already some. So with the kindness, say for example, a mind of compassion that already exists within us, when we know that it's there, we try to make it grow. And the third is to not to give rise to evil where there is none. So when you know that something's bad, of course, you start to take precautions to prevent this evil from growing. And the fourth is to stop evil where there is some. When evil already arises, say for example, when you realize there's anger in your mind, then you will try to make it go away. So these are the 4 ways to help us make progress. Okay, it's time for us to go into another break again. So we'll see you back soon.